There are many indie horror games coming out that are paying homage to the PS1 style games of old, especially horror games of the 90s. Today, I'm going to talk to you about a game that finds inspiration in the PS1 style era horror games, but still manages to create something very original and interesting. Hi everyone, my name is Jeremy and this is my non-spoiler review for Alisa Developers Cut for the PS5. The game was developed by Casper Crows and published by Top Hat Studios. Alisa follows the story of Alisa, who is an elite Royal Agent who, as part of a task force in the 1920s, is tasked with finding a man. While in the search, she is abducted by weird monsters and taken away to an unknown location filled with weird monsters. Now it is up to you to find a way out of this nightmarish place. One of the things that I need to point out in regards to the story of this game is that there's a certain sense of humor to the dialogue. The game really doesn't take itself very seriously, not only with the dialogue but with what's happening in the story, and that's actually kinda nice. The story is told through documents and voice-acted cutscenes, and even the voice acting is PS1 quality voice acting. It's intentional, and it's the type of it's so bad it's funny kind of thing. In regards to the visuals, the game follows PS1 era visuals. You have pre-rendered cutscenes, pre-rendered backgrounds, and polygonal character models with fixed camera angles. In regards to the music, I have to say that it's very atmospheric and memorable. There are a lot of areas in the game that are very distinct from one to the other, and the music really accentuates that distinction. And I feel like the music is again very faithful to the PS1 style music of horror games. So let's talk about the gameplay. Alisa Developers Cut is a third-person survival horror game with fixed camera angles. The game focuses on fighting and puzzle solving. Just like in classic survival horror games, you will have to explore your surroundings, find key items, and solve puzzles to open new paths. Along the way, you will find a variety of enemies that you will have to choose to fight or evade. The catch here is that there's an incentive for fighting enemies, and that incentive is that each enemy that you kill will drop currency, which you can use to buy different things. In the save rooms, you will find a character that sells you weapons, outfits, which affect your defense stat, and consumables. They can all be bought with the currency of the game, which is called tooth wheels. Each enemy drops a different amount, so in this sense, instead of running away from every single enemy that you fight, the game incentivizes you to fight them so you can get currency and buy new stuff so you can progress through the game. It's important to point out that not only can you buy items, but the saves in this game are manual and they cost 1 currency. This game does not have inventory management, and you have at your disposal a map which you can use to see which areas you have explored, what doors are closed, and use it to better plan out how you're gonna explore. Other aspects that are important to point out is that you can choose between tank controls and modern controls, and you can choose at the beginning of the game if you want to have auto aim or if you want to turn it off. In terms of the setting is very interesting. The place where the game takes place, I believe, is called a dollhouse, and a lot of the enemies are inspired in toys, among many other things. So in that sense, there's a very good variety of enemies and they are very creative, and there are also boss fights. This game takes around 7 hours to complete, but it's important to point out that there's a lot of stuff to do. Like I said at the beginning, this is the developer's cut version of the game, which includes additional endings, new items, new enemies, among many other things. So if you're going for a completionist playthrough, there's a lot of gameplay to be had in this game. In terms of the performance, all I can say is that the game ran at a very steady, I believe 60 frames per second. It looked buttery smooth and I had no problems with the frame rate whatsoever. So let's talk about the cons and the pros of this game. I'm gonna start out with the pros. First of all, I found that the game does a very good job at faithfully recreating the visuals, the feel, and atmosphere of the PS1 style survival horror games of old, while still doing something original, which I really appreciated. And that's the second thing that I would point out as a pro of this game, the originality. The setting and aesthetics of the enemies and environment are very original and visually interesting. So let's talk about the cons of this game. And here I have 2 issues which I consider to be very big, but I have to recognize and point out that these issues that I'm gonna point out bother me specifically. I'm pretty sure that other people are gonna pick up the game and they may not find that to be troublesome, but I did, and I need to point it out. The first thing that I need to mention, I'm gonna call it a balancing issue. For some reason, when you play this game, it looks and plays like a survival horror game from old, aka fixed camera angles, tank control, characters move slow. But when you start seeing what the game is going for in regards to how the enemies move and the bosses, it feels like the game was going for an action game feel. And that makes for a very weird mix, honestly. Among the many things that I noticed that go along these lines is that, first of all, enemies are very fast and you are very slow. Groups of enemies can stun lock you, which happened to me a few times. And sometimes there are way too many enemies in the area. This is supposed to be a survival horror game where you're supposed to like control how you use your resources, but at the same time the game wants you to kill the enemies so that you can get the currency. And honestly, to me, it just didn't mix very well. And at the end, I felt like it ended up affecting how much I enjoyed of the game. I would have preferred the game going for one thing or the other. If you're gonna go for an action game feel, you can't have, in my opinion, tank controls, fixed camera angles, because it just doesn't mix very well. And that takes me to my second critique of the game. The fixed camera angles, combined with what I just explained, are a bad mix. Far too many times, I was facing off against enemies, and when I started moving and the camera angle changed, it really didn't help. I took damage unnecessarily and it kept happening a lot. And it even happens during boss fights. These two things honestly took the game down for me way too much. I can totally see people enjoying this game because it's a really good game, but in my case, it was just too much. So in conclusion, Alisa Developers COD offers a truly PS1 era inspired survival horror game while still managing to create an original setting and aesthetics. However, frustrating issues related to game balancing and the fixed camera angles really hindered my gameplay experience, lowering the fun and enjoyment by a lot. For this reason, I recommend this game, but with caution. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!
Excuse me.
Hi everyone, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with our content.